of this, Wayne's always wonderful with kicking us off for the next installment of the series. So for our next season of Through the Lens of Time, this is a great way to celebrate Myrtle Beach history and something that we, not an individual family or person, which is really cool. So we're talking about Myrtle Beach football. So I'm really excited to learn about that and thank Wayne for being the one to lead us through this journey today. A few people I would like to thank, because this series is really a labor of love for all of the people who speak. They take the time to do their research. So thank you, Wayne, for your time. And also for Martina Corley, who is our Friends of Chapin Library president. She takes a lot of time promoting this, spreading the word, because we do all these awesome things at the library, but if no one knows about them, then what's the point? So she's really great about spreading the word on what we do here at the library, our resources, programs like this. So please make sure you grab an event newsletter on your way out so you know what is coming up. And also, our Friends of Chapin Memorial Library. If you are not a friend of the library as part of your membership and support of Myrtle Beach, we ask that you take that into consideration. There are applications, paper applications at the front. You can do $20 for a year, or if you just want to forget it and set it, and lifetime membership for $100, we welcome that as well. It helps us do programs like this and a lot of the other things that we do here at the library that fall outside of our budget. We appreciate that support. We are able to get new furniture that way, more programming that way. So we appreciate you supporting the library. Wayne doesn't need an introduction, he said, but I must say that he is a huge friend of the library, and we really appreciate him being here and participating and doing things like this. So off to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jen. I'm glad Jen introduced herself, of course, and Tina Corley, and I want to thank both of them for their efforts. I've said this to many of you before, having been more of a student, more of an athlete than a student, or at least attempted to be an athlete. The library was not a place as a child or as a teenager that I visited most. But in the last number of years, I have been able to spend more time here and really become to realize what a jewel a library offers us. And the opportunity to have these Through the Lens of History series has been wonderful. Our special guests, I see that they just arrived, so if you wait just a minute, they'll come in. They're going to take up the back. Becky, is Roger going to join us? No, my own brother can't be here. Well, let me scratch him out of the PowerPoint.
He's out.
Talk about him now?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about him now. I do need to introduce my youngest, Sydney Gray. Stand up, Sydney. This is Sydney. Y'all knew her on Facebook as Sid the Kid. Now she's Sid the Mom. And of course, she's got a 4-year-old son, Kyler, who is just phenomenal. For those of you who have grandchildren, you know what that's about. We're so thankful that we didn't kill our kids to get our grandchildren, right? All right, so we got a special group coming in that's going to listen to us. Coach Mickey Wilson. And his 2019-2025 Myrtle Beach High School football team. So guys, you're going to have to just find a seat or stand in the back where you can. We're glad you're able to make it. This is normally fourth block, where the football team is normally, I think, in strength training. But Coach Wilson thought it was important for his team to come and listen to the history of Myrtle Beach High School football. So while they're coming in, I also want to make a couple of special introductions. Some obviously are associated with folks that I interviewed this summer for this presentation. Some that we'll talk about, a couple new ones. But I do want to introduce a new resident to the Myrtle Beach area, and I have met with him and told him that this would be a good way to learn really about the fabric of Myrtle Beach. He's the current Chief Executive Officer of the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce and the Myrtle Beach Convention Visitors Bureau, Matt Provarnik. Matt, if you please stand up. Thank you for being here, Matt. Football team, just find a spot where you best can stand or sit. Now, a couple of other introductions. Just raise your hand. This is one of the gentlemen that I interviewed this past summer. This is Clyde Capps. Clyde played on the 1948, 49, and 50 football teams. He graduated in 1951. You'll see some pictures and you'll learn a little bit more about Clyde and his football prowess. This is Clyde's younger brother, Harold Capps. Harold graduated in 1956, played on the 1955 team. This is Harold's jersey from 1955. He also played in the Tobacco Bowl, which at the time was an all-star game in the PD area. That was played in December. Back then, the North-South game was played in the summer. That's his North-South and Tobacco Bowl jersey right there. When he was playing as a senior in 55, you'll learn a little bit about that. Clyde was a volunteer coach from Myrtle Beach High School at that time. There's one other gentleman that I interviewed, Toby Ward. Toby is not with us. Is Toby here? Yes. Toby graduated Myrtle Beach High School in 1947. Played on the 1946 team, which was the first year that reconvened after World War II, where we didn't have a team for 5 years. I told Toby that in doing this research, at least in Myrtle Beach proper, the Grand Strand, he must be the oldest living Myrtle Beach High School graduate that I've had an opportunity to meet. Bubba Cannon. Bubba, raise your hand. Bubba's best known as the husband of Bleeker Cannon. Bleeker was a teacher and an administrator in the Myrtle Beach school system for over 30 years. Bubba and Clyde played on those 48, 49, 1950 teams. You'll learn a little bit more about that as well. Charlie Floyd. 1959 graduate of Loris High School, 1964 graduate of Furman, where he played on both sides of the football. Assistant coach in 64 and 65, head coach in 66 and 67. Then he chose to go into the private sector. But he's been a great supporter of Myrtle Beach High School, Myrtle Beach High School athletics, and Myrtle Beach High School in general. Charlie, thank you for being here. Elton Brunny. 1964 graduate of Furman, quarterback from West Virginia. Assistant coach hired by Charlie Floyd in 66, so he's an assistant coach in 66 and 67, head coach in 68 and 69. Elton, thank you for being here. Thank you. Buddy Stiers. Buddy played on the 1957, 58, 59 teams. Believe it or not, he was the center. He brought me a jersey. He brought me an old jersey that, I mean, it must have been dated to the 40s.
It's a 57.
Was it 57 jersey? Okay. Did I leave it in the bag?
Yeah. Buddy
played with my uncle and my dad, and you'll learn a little bit about those teams. So here's a jersey from 1957. You know, they were all, you know, at 155 pounds, you were playing on the offensive line. 155 today, you don't even get in the game. There's one last person that, you know, sorry about introducing certain folks and not introducing some, but well, I hadn't finished with that one yet. But before I get to her, I want this gentleman right here in the blue shirt to stand up. This is Ashley Booth. Now, if you go out to the Ned Donkel complex, the youth football field that's adjacent to Doug Shaw is named after him, Ashley Booth. You know, you got to have people who are part of the program from the little leagues that do all the things that nobody else wants to do, and Ashley Booth did that for, 40, 50 years. So Ashley, thank you for being here. And I won't get on you that your son Merle isn't a very good umpire and referee. And then somebody who's obviously most special to me, and you'll learn about this, Mickey, no disrespect to Kristen, but she's still the first lady of Myrtle Beach High School football, Cecilia Shaw. Okay, we got the introductions out of the way. Before we do get started, the last thing that we did when I played for Doug Shaw, and you'll learn a little bit about that, when we left the locker room when the high school was right here to travel to what was then Memorial Stadium, was Doug Shaw, is we would, because we were blessed people and we had an opportunity to play a game that we actually enjoy, we offered thanks. So we're going to offer thanks by giving the Lord's Prayer, and we're going to do it in a traditional Methodist way, and we're going to use the word trespasses. Okay? So you follow with me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thank you. Before we get started a little bit about football, because it's going to tie into the narrative, I want to give you a little bit about, you got to have school before you have football. So I want to give you a little bit of education and background about the development of public schools in South Carolina. And just real quickly, and more importantly here about Myrtle Beach. So about 1899, 1900, the General Assembly passes a law that local cities could levy taxes for public schools. In the early 1900s, the public school that the folks lived in Myrtle Beach attended was down Pine Island Road, what some people know as Old Cyclist Highway or as Old Conway Highway, which was the way that you came into Myrtle Beach. In 1910, the school moves to a building about where Lazelle's flower shop is. At that time, everybody that was grammar school and high school went together. You only went through high school through the 10th grade. There's 136 days of instruction versus 180 days now. In 1918 is the first enrollment of students that actually will graduate Myrtle Beach High School. The first graduating class was in 1930. So in 1918, we have 71 students that enrolled, and in 1930, 6 of those 71 students graduated from high school. Prior to 1930, if you wanted to graduate from high school, you'd have to go to Conway to do so. 1926, 1928, the state builds educational building at 505 North Kings Highway, which is the current present-day post office. That building housed, again, grammar school and high school. At that point in time, you could graduate through 11 grades. That building burns in February of 46. So from 46 to September of 48, our students were scattered at the Pavilion and at the Seaside Inn and at the USO Club down by Spivey Beach, which is present-day Family Kingdom Amusement Park. Now, that's the school for the white students. And so if we're going to talk about high school, we've got to include the students for the black students. So prior to in the early 1900s, most of the African-American students would have attended school at Mount Olive AME. In 1932 was the construction of the colored school, which has been replicated. It sits there on Joe White High School in Carver and Dunbar. In 1930, Whittemore, which is the African-American school that served the Conway area, received its accreditation, one of 3 schools in the state that did so. And so if you were an African-American student and you wanted to continue your high school to receive your diploma after, say, 8th or 9th grade, you would go there. You may recall 1947 in Summerton, South Carolina, which is Clarendon County, was an initiation of a lawsuit by the NAACP, asking the Supreme Court to intervene on separate but equal, which was the law of the land. And that course took place all the way to that, and 5 other states joined in a Supreme Court lawsuit that in 1954 the Supreme Court struck down separate but equal and demanded that integration occurred. So in the 50s, you had the governor of the state at that time, James F. Burns, was recognizing and trying to be progressive and built what was called the training school, which was Old Central on Joe White. But in 1965, South Carolina allowed what was called freedom of choice. So if you were an African-American student, you could choose to go to a white high school. In January of 1965, there were 4 African-American students that enrolled at Myrtle Beach High School. The point of this whole story that I want to get to, which is going to be in the narrative, is in 1970, remember this date, 1970, some of you it's already sticking in your mind. 1970 is the first year of forced integration in the state of South Carolina. And that's going to be an important narrative in the discussion that we have today. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about that. Let's get started with this presentation, what you came for. You want to learn a little bit about the history of Myrtle Beach High School football. I'm going to show you the 3 different slides of the pirate logo. This was the original logo, if you will, that dates back the best that I can find of seeing it in an annual or on a Letterman's jacket. It was a picture of a Letterman's jacket in the 1957 annual. So that would have been the 56-57 class. This Letterman jacket belongs to Cecil Patrick, who played on the 60-61 teams, the 62 graduate. You can see that with the dagger. This actually belongs to his grandson, Jake. So there's an original. And then who all recognizes that? Alma Lynn painted that on the brick wall in the old high school, what was right here in 1963. So that was one with the larger saber. We see that a lot in the, not really on the uniforms, but a lot in the annuals. And then there's our logo today. They've removed the dagger. So there's your 3 different Seahawk logos. There's a rendering that is right there. And you can see that this is the Myrtle Beach High School that was opened in September of '48. This was the original building. It had 10 classrooms, 2 stories, and it had a gymnasium. It's basically right here where the Kings Festival Plaza. This is the new high school that opened in January of 1988. This is Memorial Stadium, a rendering of that. Okay, football starts in Myrtle Beach in 1938. Interesting, a lot of things started in 1938. We incorporate as a town. The Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce gets established. This is a reunion in October of 1983, which happened to be my sophomore year, a 45-year reunion of the 1938 team. The 2 coaches at that time were L.N. Clark, who was your superintendent, and Ernie Southern was your principal. So there's your 2 coaches. Earl Huggins, many of you know little Earl. Earl had the beach server. This is Earl Huggins right here. He was the quarterback, 1938 and 39. They practiced, again, where's the school? The school's at 505 North Kings Highway. But they practiced at the corner of 10th Avenue and Oak Street, where it eventually became the practice field and the football field. And everybody knows that as the old Sandspur patch, right? That was where they practiced. Where that team played, they played at a couple of different places. Down Joe White Avenue on land owned by Myrtle Beach Farms was Trask Farms. George Trask, Ruth Gore's father, had a farm. There was a little small airstrip. So they'd go play games on that airstrip. Those years and in the later years, they also played some games on the driving range at the Ocean Forest Country Club, which is now Pine Lakes Country Club. First year's team, another gentleman that was on that team is Leroy Harrelson Jr. Leroy's father was the first mayor of City of Myrtle Beach, hence the name Harrelson Boulevard. Leroy also ended up being the owner and publisher of the forerunner of the Sun News, the Myrtle Beach News. So he had a lot of information I was able to get from him that he's passed down to Mike Hussey. That first year's team played 4 games. They were 1-1-2. They played Conway, Pleasant Hill, that we know as Hemingway, Lauda, and Marion. And that year they did have a contest of the student body of what would be the mascot and what would be the colors. And the mascot was a Seahawk. And according to Bob Buchanan, they chose green and gold even back then because it was better than blue. So we're glad that, we chose green and gold. But that's your original team in 1938. Okay, so here's the first annual. This is the 1940-1941 annual. This is what was the building built in 27-28 by the state, where the present day post office is. And as that building burned, there was an eventual educational built there that many of us went to grade school. But there's your first annual. This is a picture. This is the oldest picture. This is the 1940 Myrtle Beach High School football team. Didn't have any in the annual that I was able to find. Didn't have any listing of who the players were. But what surprises me, there's 27 players on that football team. That's a lot of young men. All right, so the war interrupts. we don't have a football team from 1941 to 1945. Ellen Clark actually gets called up to serve. Ernie Southern is left here by himself. He's also the sports writer for the local newspaper. And a lot of boys that would be in high school are off at war. So 1946 comes. The coach at the time is J.J. McAndrew, which is this gentleman right here. He is director of activities at the school. Toby Ward was on this team, and I'll show you a picture. But there's one other individual that I really want to point out. This gentleman right here, that's Roddy Rourke. Roddy's dad, Dr. Rourke, was the team doctor. But Roddy eventually became a math teacher at Myrtle Beach High School in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. And probably was one of the more instrumental teachers that was so supportive of Myrtle Beach High School athletics and was a part of helping develop what we know as the Myrtle Beach High School Booster Club. So make sure I want to point out Roddy Rourke in that picture. And yes, we even had cheerleaders back then. So can't have football without cheerleaders. That team played 11 games. They played 5 teams twice and played 11th game. And they were 5-6. JJ's he coached 46 and 47. Coach McAndrew, he was 10-6-3. So then Coach Andrew leaves, and there's a picture of the entire team. So I'll read out a couple of names of Grayson Dozer, Lauren Bird, Buddy Hemley, Linton Adams, Pat Donovan's a name we all probably, Don Watts, my Uncle Don, Carol Dozier, Wendell Jones, Buck Alford, Henry Connolly, and co-captain Bill Smith, and Toby Ward. Is that right there? I don't know why Toby's only got a white jersey. Of course, here's what happened. You had to bring your own gear. And most of these guys, according to Toby, were guys that actually had returned from the war. And there's a picture of Toby and his brother. Toby played 2 games that year. He said he was injured and didn't play anymore. All right, then we move. So here is the 1949 annual, known as the Whitecaps, since its origination in 41. But I show you this picture because on September the 15th of 1948, this was the new school building built right here, was built for $150,000. 10 classrooms, and here's the gymnasium. And of course, then the football stadium and practice field was here. This is your present day empty lot, Starbucks. And before Starbucks was where the Chamber of Commerce office building sat for a long time, is what we know as King's Festival Plaza. But this is the original structure that was built, and it opened in September of 48. So from 48 to 51, the head coach is Earl Huggins. And I showed you a picture of Earl earlier as a quarterback in the 38-39 teams. Here is a picture of the Bubba, tell me this is y'all's senior year. This is the 1950 team. There's Clyde Capps right there. Raise your hand, Clyde. All right, Clyde played guard. He was 135 pounds. His nickname was Squid. I guess he was so quick, he was just able to slimy his way through the deep offensive line and make that tackle. Here's Bubba Cannon right here. Bubba played center. This gentleman, Lawton, where are you? Raise your hand, Lawton Benton. This is your great-granddaddy, Jimmy Benton. Stand up, Lawton. Jimmy and Clyde played together in the 1950 Tobacco Bowl. I told you that was an all-star game for the PD area. Now, the best that my records can tell me, Lawton Benton, who's a sophomore, and his great-grandfather, Jimmy, are the first great-grandfather, great-grandsons to play high school at Myrtle Beach High School football. That deserves a round of applause. There's Squid. Clyde Capps. Now, I interviewed about 20 people, and Clyde was one of the first ones. I called his son-in-law, and I said, hey, I want to come talk to Clyde and talk about this presentation. And he said, it'd be great. We spent about an hour and a half together, he and his daughter, Gail. It was a tremendous honor for me, and it was great fun. You boys that play defensive line, you think you can play with a helmet like that? No face mask? Tell me how tough we are. Now, the best that we can tell, I believe Grayson Dozier was invited to play in the Tobacco Bowl in '46, but did not play. Jennings Benton was a year before Bubba and Clyde, and we're not sure if Jennings played in the '49 Tobacco Bowl. But the best that I can tell, Clyde and Jimmy would have been the first two football players of Myrtle Beach High School to be invited to play in an all-star game. And again, the Tobacco Bowl was played in December. It was played in Florence at Memorial Stadium, which still exists today. There's a picture of that 1950 team. There's Clyde right here. There's Jimmy Benton right there. Now, from that game, Clyde gets invited by my alma mater, which I was not aware of, Presbyterian College, to come play football there. So the best that we can tell, and unless we're otherwise educated, Clyde was the first football player at Myrtle Beach High School to be offered a scholarship to go play at the next level. And this is a letter from the head coach at the time, Lonnie McMillan, where he had observed him play in the Tobacco Bowl. Not only does he get a letter, this is December 12th, 1950, not only does he get a letter from the head football coach, he gets a letter from the athletic director at the time, Walter Johnson, who again also saw him at the Tobacco Bowl, often referred to as the PD Bowl, inviting him to come to Presbyterian. He chose to go to the Citadel. His freshman year, he had an appendectomy, never really recovered from that, but best we can tell, first individual to be offered a scholarship, Myrtle Beach High School football. So we'll move. Earl leaves after the 51 season. His career record was 14-19-2. 1952, L.J. Funderburk gets named the head coach. We are competing at that time in districts, and this is a picture of the 1955 team. L.J.'s record was 10-27-1. This is the 1955 team, though. This is the first team at Myrtle Beach High School to win a championship. Clyde, raise your hand. Harold, raise your hand. Harold's on this team, and Clyde had returned from the Citadel.
I was line coach.
He was the line coach. He was in waiting to go to service, and he was volunteering in the line at that time. And that team is the first team to win, a district championship for Myrtle Beach High School in 1955. I asked the question, why did L.J. Funderburk leave, particularly after 55? And there's a story that the team threw him off the Ocean Plaza Pier, which at that time was the 14th Avenue Pier in the ocean. But nonetheless, he chooses to leave after the 50 season. So, and Harold, can you pick, where are you, Harold? Second row, right here. Got his eyes closed in the sun. And again, at this time, they're playing basically where the present-day Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce.
We didn't throw him off the pier. We took him into the ocean and drowned him.
Didn't throw him off the pier, took him in the ocean and drowned him. All right, we'll move on. So, LJ leaves. Then in 1956, Myrtle Beach High School hires Ernie Neal. Ernie's a 1949 graduate of Kershaw High School, played in the North-South game, played football at Furman. Be interesting of the Furman connection. He had gone back to Furman to get his master's. So here's this young man applying for the job. His daughter, who I talked to on the telephone, tells me that when he was being interviewed, one of the members of the committee that were interviewing him to be a coach and a teacher, and look, back in those days, you did everything. You were a teacher, you were a coach, you coached all sports, you were the janitor, you swept the floors, you washed the clothes, you did it all. But his daughter tells me, Ernie's daughter tells me that Dr. Compton, who was the minister at the First Baptist Church at the time, was on the committee that was interviewing him. Of course, Furman is a Baptist school, and then Ernie's grandfather was an old country Baptist preacher from the Kershaw area. So they knew each other, and she said that it was very instrumental when Dr. Compton in getting Earl here. Earl coached from 1956 to 1963. His overall record was 35, 46, and 1. I told you that in 57, it's the first that we could find a yearbook with a pirate logo on the Letterman jacket. Football's starting to transition a little bit from helmets with no face mask to these little plastic things right here. Now, this is a picture of the 1958 football team, of which Buddy Stires is the center. My uncle, Buddy Rogers, right here. My father, Dan Gray, right here. Another instrumental player on this team was Bobby Lewis, and Bobby is being inducted into the Myrtle Beach High School Hall of Fame this year, and I'm sad to announce that Bobby just passed away earlier this week. I don't know any details. Bobby had not been doing well, but Bobby and my dad and my Uncle Buddy were real good friends. They often argued for many, many years beyond who was the best football player or the best athlete or who got the most girls, or who dressed the best, or who was the best looking. We can go, but so this team goes 7-4. This is the first team to actually go to a playoff game. This team goes and plays Somerville. They lose that game. So this is the game from Somerville in 1958 when we lose, and the first time that we appear in the playoffs. Losing to Somerville. Now, just incidentally, and I want to get to this when we talk about Doug Shaw. So at the time, the coach at Somerville was John McKissick. He was first started coaching there in 52. He'd already won 2 state championships in 55 and 56. He ends up coaching 59 years and doesn't finish his career until 2011. And today stands as a coach with the most wins at any level of football, in any level in the history of football. I just wanted to show this because I can. This is my program. There's my Uncle Buddy. He's voted most valuable back. I still have his trophy right here. My father was voted best blocker, and there's Bobby Lewis as best lineman, and there's Bill Pridgeon. As, of course, Bill wins the academic award, right? That's not even surprise anybody, right? So, again, members of the 58 team that first go to the playoffs, I just get to show this. This is my dad and my mom who were homecoming king and queen in 1958. I can't believe they allowed them to kiss like that. There is a picture, though, from the annual that I showed you the first time that we could find the pirate logo. I don't really, and someone may know, I've tried to figure out when actually was the pirate logo created as a part of the, or created as the logo of the mascot for the Seahawks. But that was the first that I could find it in an annual. Okay? So we'll move on from Ernie Neal. Well, let me show you this. Cecil was on this team. Cecil, I don't have a picture. I'm sorry. Here's Buddy's younger brother, Mike. I show this. This is the 1961 team. Again, I told you at the beginning I want to talk about a lot of first, whether it's a first team, a first player, or first event. But this is Joel Ripple. At that time, Joel's 6'4", 200 pounds. That's a big boy. He's fullback in. But Joel is the first player from Myrtle Beach High School to be selected to play in the Shrine Bowl. So I wanted to show Joel's accomplishments for that. That was that 1961 team. All right, so before I move on a little bit, Ernie decides to move into administration after the 1963 year. 64-65, we have a coach by the name of Danny Brabham. Danny's career record was 9-10-2. His assistant coach was Charlie Floyd. But at the time, Charlie was the head basketball coach, track coach, janitor, manager, everything at Sockers-T High School. Well, Sockers-T didn't have a football team. So they appealed to the high school league to let Sockers-T players play on Myrtle Beach's high school football team. So it only makes sense for Charlie to be an assistant in 64 and 65. I mentioned Mitch Watson earlier. Now, Mitch's older brother, Pat, was a member of that team where he was a quarterback and defensive back. Pat goes on to play football at the University of South Carolina, plays defensive back at about 135 pounds. But I think still holds a single season interception record. Single game, Pat Watson, single game interception record at the University of South Carolina since 67, 68. I mean, that's a record that stands a long time. We're sorry that Pat's not here, Mitch, but you make sure that we recognized him. Also, another individual that I interviewed that was part of that team, and I don't see him here today, was Phil Hudson. Phil was an instrumental part of that team, who went on to play at South Carolina too, but didn't play very much because of a knee injury. We go from white helmets at that point in time to a gold helmet. You'll see a picture of it in a minute. We got a gold helmet with the MB logo. Over the years, the MB has been offset like it currently is today. Or sometimes y'all may remember where the MB, the B was overlayered over the M that we have in this Letterman sweater right here. So those are the different ways that the block MB has been presented. All right, Danny Bradman decides to leave. Now, who is the principal at Myrtle Beach High School? Ernie Neal. Where did Ernie go to school? Furman. Where did Charlie Floyd go to school? Furman. Charlie's an assistant. So Ernie Neal, in his wisdom, hires Charlie Floyd as the head football coach. In those 2 years, Charlie was 12-6-2. Now, here's the best story. So, people that play for him, there's a phrase that Charlie used to say all the time. "Hi, almighty." Is that it, Charlie? Something like that. Again, an old farm boy from Loris, goes to Furman, comes back, gives of his time and effort. Now, 1966, we're playing at Conway High School. Buddy Sasser's the head football coach at Conway. We're winning. This is according to Charlie Floyd. We're winning 7-0 with 1:42 to go in the game. Buddy Sasser runs a reverse, calls a reverse, Conway scores, kicks the extra point, the game ends in a tie. So game's in a tie in 1966. Now, up until that point, we haven't beaten Conway High School, nor has any other school in Horry County. So here we go to 1968. 1967. That was 66. So then we go to 1967. They were 7-2-1 that year. That year has the first black player playing for Myrtle Beach High School. Remember me telling you that 65 was freedom of choice. 1970 was forced integration. Paul Lewis is the first African-American football player to play on Myrtle Beach High School football team in 1967. I think you still have conversations with Paul to this day, right, Charlie? Periodically. I think Paul lives in Florida now. We go 7-2-1, but here's the climax. We're playing Conway. I think it's November the 10th, 1967. We're playing right over here. Howard Johnson's Hotel. Wall around the stadium, wooden stands. Home side was over here. Visitor side was on Oak Street. Across the street was the JC Hut. We were playing Conway, and we win 13-0. First time Myrtle Beach High School had beaten Conway in 30 years. First time any other high school had beaten Conway. And some of y'all, how many of you were there? Raise your hand. Just a few of you. The home stands collapse out of joy and excitement. Now, I got to tell you something. When I was interviewing Charlie and he and I were having a conversation, he almost teared up on me, made me tear up. But he tells me the story. He said, "Wayne, there was so much pride and joy in being able to win that game that the following week, Mr. Joyner was head of the street department for the city of Myrtle Beach. Now, what color are most fire hydrants? Red, right? There was so much joy and pride that they went out and painted all the fire hydrants green and yellow, and they're still that color today. True story, Charlie Floyd? True story. So you can see the excitement. Yeah, give a applause for that.
Coach Floyd, when the Hawks took the field, they had masking tape across the front of their helmet, first in history. They went out there and played them, and they said, "First in history, we're going to beat you.
And they did. Now, that's not all the accomplishment Charlie gave Myrtle Beach High School. So he made a decision in the spring of 1968 to leave education and go into the private sector. But there was already conversation about building a new stadium. Well, obviously, we needed to build a new stadium now that the home stands collapsed. So I want you to put this in perspective. November 10th, 1967. Then there's a decision by the community to build a new stadium, which is called Memorial Stadium, which is located at the end of 33rd Avenue North, which today we know as Doug Shaw Stadium. City donates the land. The community comes together. Charlie leads an effort with people like Hazel Hatchell. Hazel was on those teams that played with Bubba and Clyde, Don Cameron, and Archie Dargan. Archie was the owner of Dargan Construction Company. 100% exist today were the home stands that were built. They raised about $100,000. They sold, they had asked for contributions, and they sold tickets. Thanks to Mike Hussey, thanks to Leroy Harrelson Jr., here's the ledgers that identify the contributions that were made, and then the ledgers of folks who bought tickets over there as well. Airvox Corporation, $3,000. The largest donation was from Myrtle Beach Farms for $5,000. Now, Charlie tells a story. They only raised about 175 was the total cost, and Archie Dargan said to everyone, "Don't worry about it, I'll take care of it." Charlie organized, though, the construction of that facility in the spring of '68. As he's leaving, he works with a site work contractor. He knew some folks from Horry County. He ordered the turf out of Columbia. He had a plumber come do the irrigation system from Socastee, and it was just an all hands on deck. And on September the 20th of 1968, 9 months later, we open up our first game at what's now Doug Shaw Stadium against McClinigan High School, and here's the program from that high school. And just to, for you football fans, the coach at McClinigan High School at the time was a gentleman who's from Sherall by the name of Fisher DeBerry, who went on to coach for 20 years at the Air Force Academy. So thank you, Charlie, to that contribution. Charlie decides to leave, but he had hired an assistant that was there in '66 and '67, played football with him at Furman. He's an assistant, then he gets promoted to head football coach, Elton Brunny. Elton's from West Virginia at the time. As soon as Elton graduated Furman, he was coaching in the upper part of the state. Then he went to Kentucky, but he came back to Myrtle Beach. Elton coached in '68 and '69. There's a picture of the Conway game in '67. Don't let me get ahead of myself. There's those gold helmets. We've gone from white helmets to gold helmets. There's the team, 7-2-1. There's Paul Lewis. Who was on that team? Raise their hand. No one here that was on that team. There's Charlie to the far right. Second time we've won 7 games in a season. Remember, we won it in '58 when we went to the playoffs. There's a copy of the ledger, one of the ledgers. There's a copy of selling tickets. Interesting enough, I look down here, my granddaddy, Philip Gray, he bought 5 tickets. He was row 19, seats 17 through 21. And then there is a picture of the grandstands when they opened in 1968. And of course, they've been remodeled a couple times since then. But that's at the end of 33rd and North Oak. All right, 1960. So now we move forward to 1968. Elton Brunny's the head coach. I show this picture because he does 2 things. Number one, he hires this guy right here, Doug Shaw. Now, Doug played football at Furman with these 2. Doug graduated from Mount Zion High School, which is the present-day Winsboro, where he played football, basketball, and baseball, all-state, many state championship teams. There's also my uncle, Buddy Rogers. So there's your coaching staff from 1968. That team goes 7-3. There's the program of the opening game against McClinigan High School. All right, and then there's a picture of Doug in 1970. What happens then, I think Elton, we had the gold helmets that had the MB logo, and then we replaced the MB logo with a pirate. So we're still wearing gold helmets at this time. We've gone from white that we've had all in the 50s to the gold helmets, and we've got a pirate logo. Elton decides that he's going to go into private sector. This suntan lotion called Hawaiian Tropic was calling him. So he leaves in the spring of 1970. Now, I'm going to spend a little time about Doug Shaw. He coached for 25 years, from 1970 to 1994. I want to read you a couple of statistics. His record was 223, 77, and 2, 4 state championships, 2 state runner-up, 16 region championships. His career winning percentage was 74%. In a period that we'll learn about where it was real success from, say, 75 to 85, his record was 124, 1-19, which is an 86% winning percentage. The backstory is Doug spent his first 2 years as an assistant at Strom Thurmond, where he met his future wife, Cecilia Lanham. She was the captain of the cheerleading team. Need to know that because this story gets a little better as we intertwine. So Doug becomes the head coach in 1970. Now, here's a couple things that I want you to remember. He comes here in 68. He and Cecilia marry in August of 68. Guess where they spent their honeymoon? At football camp. Elton, you didn't give him a week off? So they spend their honeymoon at football camp. I believe it was in Laurinburg. It was in Laurinburg. Imagine that. Thank you, Miss Shaw. That's St. Andrews, hottest place that I've ever been.
No, we got to stay at a motel.
Oh, y'all got, Elton let y'all stay at a motel. Okay. So that's 68. She's teaching 5th grade. Doug is assistant football coach. He's the head baseball coach. He's 12 hours a day at school. She's involved as teaching 5th grade. They don't, I'm giving you a story in 1970. They don't really know anybody, right? They really didn't have a lot of time to introduce themselves to the community. Maybe folks that they met through their church, First United Methodist. The guy who brought me here, Elton Brunny, who'd been an assistant for 2 years, then a head for 2 years, he decides to leave. It's 1970. What did I tell you also happened in 1970? First year of integration. Ernie Neal, a Furman graduate, picks Doug Shaw to be the head football coach. He's 28 years old. All the other assistants leave. I know I've got this societal change that's occurring. I want to build a good football program. I don't know if it's chance or luck. I'm just going to say it's a God thing, as Cecil Patrick says to me. One of his first assistants, Leroy Rainbow. And Leroy can't be here today. Leroy has been having some medical challenges, and he apologized for not being here today, but unfortunately he's not. But Leroy's a 1959 graduate at Lattimore, 63 graduate at Benedict, where he played football, taught and coached at a African-American school in Lakeview, then came to Chestnut, which was the African-American school from North Myrtle Beach area off of Highway 90. 1970, African-American schools are closing, we're integrating. He has an opportunity to go to Conway, Socastee, or Myrtle Beach. I asked him, I said, did you know Doug? He said, no. There was no reason or opportunity for me to meet Doug. He finally did. And so this two makes a pair from 1970 to 1994. And there's there's a number of other coaches that are a part of that. And so Leroy's 29, Doug's 28. One's white, one's black. They're going to be coaching football at Myrtle Beach. They don't know anybody. They don't know any of the parents. They don't know any of the community. And it's integration. And I got to deal with the social challenges that exist. That's just really the way it is. So Doug Shaw steps into that role. And that's a picture of him from 1970. There's that 1970 team. There's Doug and Leroy. From that year in 17, there's a picture in the Sun News where they invited Bubba Cannon, who was a referee for 25 years for football, to come talk to the football team about any changes that were occurring in officiating. Also around this time, we went from districts to classifications. So Myrtle Beach gets classified as 3A. So we're now 3A classification. That's that 1970 football team. Now, this is a reality. There's 6 African Americans on this team. Many of the African Americans that came from Whittemore did not come out for football that first 3. There's that gold helmet that we talked about with the offset of the MB. Then in 70, Frank Smith, help me. Frank's on the 70, 71, 72, 73 teams. That was 72, 73. Doug goes to a green helmet and the pirate. See it with the dagger there. Just want to show you. There's my favorite picture of Doug Shaw. That was the years that I was playing for him. There's a picture of Leroy Rainbow in the 80s. Another gentleman that I do not want to leave out, it's actually his birthday today. He's 79 years old, but he's unable to be with us because he has COVID. This is Tom Langford. Tom's a Marshall graduate. He went to school with my Uncle Buddy. Buddy brought him down here in the late 60s. He went back and got his master's. He was at the junior high school, but then in 72, he comes to Myrtle Beach as an assistant JV football coach to Monty Woolley, teaching PE. 73, he becomes the head JV football coach and did that for 20 years. But on Friday nights, he was the offensive coordinator and the play caller. And as Coach Wilson will tell you, there's many ingredients to make a good football program. But if you've got 3 or 4 coaches that think alike, act alike, work alike, believe in each other, trust in each other, you can mold young men into some things that are really successful. And it's more than just what they accomplish on the football field. It's really what they accomplish in life. But Tom Langford was very much a part of that. And what you did at JV was exactly what you're going to do at varsity. The alignments, the terminology, the plays. And it really wasn't about winning or losing. It was really about developing players once they got to their varsity level. And so that was a tandem that created a tremendous amount of success. 1973, Furman, Doug's alma mater, goes to this diamond. And so the next year in 74, he goes to the diamond logo. And that had been the logo for the rest of his career until 94. We're going to talk about Minnie first. But I want to just think of this narrative. 2 young coaches, black-white, 1970, forced integration. 6 guys playing in 1970. By 1971, now I've got 16 African Americans. I got to go into the community and recruit them to come out and play. They play, and by 1975, they're playing in their first state championship game. I mean, this is Remember the Titans kind of story, right? So this is your 1975 team that plays in the state championship game. They lose to Clinton that year. But interesting, Keith Richardson's the head football coach at Clinton. They have some more competitions against each other. They become great friends. But I believe Keith and Doug played against each other when they were in high school. Keith at Clinton, Doug at Mount Zion in Winsboro. So you think it's a big place. It's really a small state. You know, I failed to mention a couple players that I think is important to mention that were in those early 70s. So really one of the really first good players in 1971, which was somebody that Doug and Leroy had to go recruit, was a gentleman by the name of Nate Sumter. Nate goes on to play at the University of Tennessee. Nate's one of 9 children. There were 8 boys and 1 girl. I went to school with 3 of the younger children. Nate goes on to play at Tennessee. What follows him was LaVon Sumter, who goes on to, Nate. LaVon goes on to play at Georgia Tech. What follows that is Lester Brown. Lester's a running back that goes on to play at Clemson, starts, nicknamed the Rubber Duck, played 10 years in the Canadian Football League. And then on that team also was this gentleman right here. This is Eddie Gathers. Eddie played quarterback for 3 years, went on to play at Clemson, started 4 years at defensive back in the late 70s. But think of that football team where your offensive backfield is Eddie Gathers at quarterback. Lester Brown was actually the fullback. 2 brothers, LaVon and Nate, this is 71, 72, 73. They're the running backs. Those 4 Division I athletes are your offensive backfield. And they held a state record for the 100-meter relay for probably 30 years. But this is your first team in 1975 that makes it to a state championship game. Anybody in here on this team?
Don't forget about Gary Rose.
I'm not going to forget about, there's 2 brothers right there, Gary Rose and Mitch Rose. Gary still works at Pepper Gettings Recreation Center today. This is the 1978 team. This is the first team that went undefeated. This is a 10-0 team that went undefeated. Yeah, speaking of many first, 1978 team. Hey, we like to refer to the quarterbacks. I don't know why. Maybe because I was one. Billy Austin was the quarterback. A lot of other guys on this team went on to play at Clemson. Roy Brown. But that's the first undefeated team from Myrtle Beach High School in 1978. 79, we don't have a quarterback. Billy Austin graduates. Doug's looking for a quarterback. There's this tall 6'4" kid. His father comes down here to work for the school district. He's from North Carolina. His name is Jim Wright. So Jim becomes the quarterback as a junior in 1960. Is Jim's son in here? There you are. Stand up. Introduce yourself. Andrew came down from Charlotte. Andrew's father, Jim, was the quarterback in 79. The reason why I show you that, Jim went on to teach and coach at Myrtle Beach High School and worked for the school district for many years. He's no longer with us. He's transitioned into a better life. But he's the quarterback in 79. But the reason why there's the first is this is your first state championship football team in 1980. And Jim Wright's the quarterback. My brother Roger Gray is the center. There he is right there. Now, here's the backstory of that team. State championship game is back then we weren't playing at a central site. You rotated upper state, lower state. That year, the upper state's accommodating the state championship game. We're going to be playing Strom Thurmond High School. Now, who's from Strom Thurmond in Edgefield? Who did I say? Miss Shaw, right? So, 1980, we go back to play at Strom Thurmond. Now, you got to know this. Strom Thurmond lost in state championship in 1979. Their quarterback is the best football player in the state of South Carolina, and one of the best football players that's ever played at that time. His name was Ira Hillary. So, I'm getting excited. We there?
Yeah.
All right. So, backstory is Myrtle Beach Seahawks, they're from the beach. Them guys play in the sand and they surf. They don't play no football. They're not coming up here to Edgefield, South Carolina, where we really play football, Strom Thurmond running Rebels. We go up there, and then you got the whole story. Wait a minute now. Doug Shaw used to coach here, and then he stole our beauty queen. He stole the captain of the cheerleading team and took her down to Myrtle Beach. Gonna bring her back here and play? Oh man, we're gonna stomp them. And we got Ira Hillary. Who's gonna beat him? Well, that team wins 34-20. Wins the state championship. So first state championship, 1980. And that's a little bit of the narrative of the backstory to give you a little bit of fun. Now, Ms. Shaw, how bad was it when you were leaving? Not too bad. Don't even remember. There's that team. Okay, so, yep.
Our Hillary, at that time, they were wearing tearaway jerseys.
They were.
Okay? And they outlawed them after that year. We like to never have tackled that sucker. I bet we tore 30 jerseys off.
That's Don Wiggins, a 72 graduate who was an assistant coach at that time, also was the head baseball coach for Myrtle Beach. Don, thanks for...
I also played for Elton at Furman for baseball.
That's correct.
What do you do for a living, sir?
So this is what do we do? In 81, we repeat the state championship. That year, we played at home. We played Broome. Broome had a quarterback by the name of Randy Anderson that went on to play at Clemson. Again, my brother is a senior, so he's starting at center as a junior and now a senior. That's the 81 team. There he is. I'm my brother Roger. It's my program. I get to put who in I want. I'll share a story with you. There I am. That's my senior year. This is my jersey from our 83 state championship team, which was something that we got to keep, and we replicated those jerseys. I show that to you. So there's the 83 team. Now, 1982 team, didn't have a picture. Go to the state championship, lose to Burns High School. Rainy that week. They pour a bunch of sand in the field. We lose 9-7. We missed 3 field goals. We were slipping all over. Other than probably the 2010 team that Everett Golson was the quarterback of that beat South Point in the state championship. In my lifetime, that 1982 team was really, really good. They had a football player by the name of Bobo Holloman who wore number 26, and he played free safety that went on to Clemson, and he probably was one of the more complete football players Myrtle Beach High School ever had. I know that because as a 9th grader, I moved up after JV season was over. I'm running scout team. I run the ball, and he comes in and hits me. I'm weighing 145. He's 185, and my shoulder pad split. But that was the 82 team. So here's the 83 team that wins the state championship. I'm a sophomore that year. Here I am. These guys took me in, and a lot of fun. We repeat in 84. There's the 1984 state championship, so we repeat the state championship. So think of that. We're in 5 straight state championships, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, not winning it in 82. There's only one other coach in South Carolina who's had a football team to play in 5 straight state championships. He's still coaching today. It's Tom Knotts, who coaches at Dutch Fork High School. So think of that. I mean, that's, difficult to do that. All right. before I move on to next, we're an hour in. Is everybody good? Okay. Look, there's a crowd. There's a microphone. We might be here till supper. I promise we're going to get out of here. But so 80s, still have very good, successful football teams. Get into the early 90s, start having some changes. You're as a high school football coach, you're subject to the attendance area that you're given, and it ebbs and flows. And I told you about that 25-year career that Doug Shaw had. He averaged 9 wins a season. I mean, that's incredible over 25 years because you're handed what is given to you. So in the late 80s, early 90s, we start to lose some of the numbers of players that we have. Other sports are coming into play. Kids are doing other things. And so not having quite the same success. But I will tell you, in 92, had a losing season, which was the second losing season that Doug ever had. But then in 93, they turn it around and they go all the way to the lower state championship. Then in 1994, average year, make the playoffs. Who do we play? First round of the playoffs, we have to go to Strom Thurmond. We beat them in 80, we beat them in 83, and we beat them another year in the 80s in the playoffs. Man, they're ready to repay Myrtle Beach back. So, nonetheless, that was a difficult night. Okay, Ms. Shaw, okay. Worst loss Doug Shaw ever experienced, 61 points. They wanted to run it on. They wanted to turn it on Myrtle Beach, and they did. 1 week later, November 11th, 1994, I get a call at about 5:30 a.m. It's Tom Langford. Hey, Wayne. Yeah, Tom. I got some bad news for you. Yes, sir. Doug Shaw has just died. I think all of us, we think back on our careers as a student and as an athlete, when somebody asks you, hey, who was your hero? Who was your model? Who do you look up to? And it's going to be a teacher and a coach. And nobody was bigger than life to me than Doug Shaw. So you can imagine the emotions of that day. And I was a young professional, just kind of returning to Myrtle Beach at the time. I graduated college in 1990, and I was getting involved with the program through the Booster Club. I was volunteering coach at the rec center. Doug would come watch my games when I volunteered coach at the rec center. So obviously, just a tremendous loss to the Shaw family, to Myrtle Beach High School football, and to the community of Myrtle Beach. What follows after that is we hire Marty Williams. Marty's not here, is he? I told Marty when he took that job, I don't know if this is the right thing. Marty was the head coach at Johnsonville High School, coming off a couple of state championships. You got to go replace a legend that we lose unexpectedly. Teams are kind of, the talent level is not quite as good as it used to be, but Marty, who played for Doug and who coached for Doug, says, no, I want the opportunity to do it. Doesn't have great success, recognizes that after 3 years and decides, hey, I need to turn this over to somebody else. So he's coaching, and that would be 95, 96, 97. He decides to step down. We're looking for a new high school football coach. I happen to be on the committee that interviewed the candidates. We then hire a gentleman by the name of Doug Terry. Doug was coming from the upper state. Doug had a great pedigree where he was, but was looking to come here, as a lot of teachers and coaches do, to finish out his career. Doug coached from 99 to 2000. Didn't have great success either. So we had 6 years of a lot of challenge from Myrtle Beach High School football because we were used to tremendous successes. Now, one thing Doug Terry does in 2000, in the summer of 2000, is he hires this guy right here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the recent football history, but who knows who that is? That's Scott Early. Scott grew up in Kings Mountain, North Carolina, played baseball at Gardner Webb, had coached at Lake City, was coaching at Carolina Forest. Doug recognizes, I need to get somebody in here. He comes over to coach the defense as an assistant football coach. He's the head baseball coach. We were 0-10 the year before he became the defensive coordinator. We were 5-5 that year just because we stopped people and it gave us a chance to win. So the best thing that Doug Terry did was to hire this guy right here. Now, as he's coming in to be the head coach, I'm becoming the president of the Booster Club. Now, I can tell you some stories about this guy. We could sit here all day as a football coach. But Scott brought an energy and an excitement to the high school program. And Nona Kerr, the principal at the time, will tell you that the attitude in the school building was not good because the football team had not been successful. And you've heard many presidents of universities, and I'll tell you, principals of high school will tell you that athletics, and particularly in the South where football dominates, is the front porch of your environment. And she will tell you that he completely turned around the attitude, the atmosphere, and the excitement of students in the school program. Joe Quigley, the interim athletic director, was at North Myrtle Beach during Scott Early's years. I can tell you some stories about their relationship, which was real fun, wasn't it, Joe? Anyway, Scott had tremendous success. But the first thing he does in 2001 is hire this guy named Mickey Wilson. Mickey's an 89 graduate of Conway High School. His dad was a high school basketball coach. They're originally from Kentucky. Mickey played basketball at Coastal Carolina University after spending his first year at Newberry. When was Doug there when you were there? Yeah, Charleston. That's right, Charleston Southern. Y'all may know the story of Mickey. Mickey's a resilient personality, one of my best friends. He and I obviously talk quite often. He was a part of the Conway High School team where he was named quarterback, and the community didn't like the fact that he replaced an individual who actually would have going to be better, Carlos Hunt, playing at other positions, in multiple positions. That led to a boycott of the African-American team and obviously decimated that Conway team and went winless that year, right, Nikki? One game? Got one that year. But I will tell you, that year has taught Mickey Wilson a lot about being a head football coach and about relationships with people of different backgrounds, different races, different characters, different incomes, different parts of the city or the community where they live in. Now, they have great success. They turn around the football program. The team had been decimated. Not a lot of great athletes were coming out. They were doing other things. But to get this kid that's just a phenomenal athlete named J.D. Melton, he started as a seventh grader at shortstop on the baseball team. Now, difficult position to play, where your best athlete is. Went on to play baseball at the Naval Academy. In 2004, he's named Mr. Football in the state of South Carolina. And we start winning. Here's some records that J.D. holds in the record books. 222 completions his senior season. That's and then 8 TDs in one game. He has 8 passing TDs in 2004 against St. James. He's the 2004 Mr. Football, the first that's named. Again, there are many, many other players that need to be recognized, but I'm just trying to recognize folks who were the first. Then what follows J.D. Melton is a freak. This guy named Everett Golson. Now, I first see Everett as a 7th grader playing rec league football. My brother's the principal at Myrtle Beach Middle School. This kid's gifted at everything he does. Straight A student. They're in an instrument that he can't play. And he's out there in the 7th grade just tossing the football like it's nothing else. He plays JV in the 8th grade. Then in August, his 9th grade, which is 2007, Scott calls me and says, hey, now the returning quarterback had started the previous 2 years, and his name Mickey and Andrew Ellis, who went on to play football at Princeton, I believe. Andrew Ellis had started the previous 2 years, had thrown for over 2,500 yards. Says, hey, I'm going to start a freshman over Andrew. I said, what? He said, yeah, number 5's got it, man. So, nonetheless, catches a lot of challenges with that, but this guy leads them, and I want to show you his statistics over 4 years. Now, I watched every high school football. I broadcast every high school football game he played. He was injured his senior year and missed 8 games. But I want to give you some statistics. In 4 years, missing 8 games, he threw for 11,634 yards. Wow. 151 touchdowns. And often only played the first series in the 3rd quarter. We were mostly beating teams by 40 points, and he was yanked and didn't play a lot in the 3rd and 4th quarters. Here's a couple of Everett's statistics. His 151 TDs for a career is 5th in the state of South Carolina. He had 2 seasons where he threw for 47 TDs and 1 for 44. And then he had a game where he threw for 7 touchdowns. And then he's in the record books for completions in 2 different years, 237 and 224. As you know, Everett goes on to play at Notre Dame as a redshirt freshman. I think it was in 2011, maybe 12. He's in the national championship game against Alabama. If you watch that game, Alabama was, far bigger, faster, and stronger. But there was one athlete on Notre Dame's team that looked like he could be on Alabama, and it was Everett Golson. Everett obviously was just a different talent. Quarterback is a different position than a regular football, but I think it's appropriate that we honor and recognize, what he was able to do at Myrtle Beach High School. And of course, in 2008, we won a state championship game playing at Clemson. They're now at a central site. We beat Chester, and that year is the city decides to renovate Doug Shaw Stadium. I didn't think about it till the day. It's 40 years after the stadium was built. And we were the only high school in the school district where the city and or the citizens had built the facility. I was on city council at the time. We wanted to make some improvements. Field turf, which is an improvement over artificial turf, was becoming more and more popular. So we partnered with the school district. City put in $2 million. The school district put in $2 million, and we rebuilt Doug Shaw Stadium. We re-improved the grandstands, a new rubber track, a new field turf, the Digitron scoreboard, and some improvements, to the press box at the time. And that was in 2008. And there we are at the ribbon cutting, and there's me introducing Ms. Shaw to say a few words in that 2008 year, the first renovation of Doug Shaw Stadium. There's a state championship from that team, 2008. Then there's a state championship team in 2010. In 2009, we make it to the state championship and lose to Clinton High School. I showed you that picture of my brother and me. Before the 2008 state championship, we had 4, 80, 81, 83, and 84. My brother playing center, me playing quarterback. We used to have this little question, or trivia question, who handled the snap on the 4 state championship teams that Myrtle Beach had. And, of course, that was the Gray Boys. My brother Roger was the center, and I was the quarterback. Now, we can't use that trivia question. Well, we can, but when these guys win the state championship, there's your 2010 team. There's my nephew Heath. I show that because that's Roger's son. He plays center on 2 state championship teams, the 2010 and the 2013 team. Not even playing defensive line, following in the footsteps of his dad, Roger. There's the 13 state championship team under Coach Wilson. There's the final renovations to Doug Shaw that was in 15-16, where we built a new press box. We replaced the turf and made some other further improvements. And so that's what the facility looks like today. One of the finest facilities that exist as a high school facility, and then serves as the center of our sports tourism. And I'm proud to say that I think that building this field turf and the multiple use that it allows resulted in the school district deciding that it was going to field turf all of the other 8 high school football complexes that the high schools have. There's the 2018 team, state championship under Coach Wilson. Another first, there's Luke Doty. Luke was also named Mr. Football in 2018. He's your backup quarterback at the University of South Carolina right now, and has been a great leader and player of that team. Mike Hussey's in the crowd. I didn't introduce Mike early. I don't know if you were here first, Mike. Mike and I served together on the Booster Club. Mike was instrumental in pushing for the Myrtle Beach High School Athletic Hall of Fame. Its first inaugural year was in 2019. Many of this material that Leroy Harrelson passed down to Mike, he's allowed us to use today. And he's been a great resource and a great friend of high school athletics. So in 2019, we introduced the Athletic Hall of Fame, and incidentally, I told you that there's 10 being introduced or inducted this year. Bobby Lewis from the 58 team is one. Luke Doty is one that's being inducted this year, along with other well-deserving. And then there's a picture of Doug Shaw as we exist today in that big, beautiful blue and yellow logo that sits on the. Y'all take that for whatever it is. One that we all recognize and we know exactly what it is. It's an hour and a half. I want to share. I want to just close, and I hope we have some time for Q&A. But I want to close with a couple of things. One, so 8 state championships: 80, 81, 83, 84, 08, 10, 13, and 18. 4 state runner-ups: 75, 82, 09, and 19. Went to the lower state where we lost in the lower state 4 times: 78, 93, 2015, 2020. You heard me say that integration occurred in 1970. It was slow. And this is me, modern day era of high school football in South Carolina is 1975 to 2025. That's 50 years. In that 50 years of football, there are 3 teams that have played in more than 10 state championships. Myrtle Beach is 1, Abbeville is 1, and they dominate Class A and Class 2A, and then Burns, who dominated for years. So when you think about that, at all classifications, we're one of 3 high schools that have played in more than 10 state championships in that 50-year span. There are only, this is the last thing I'll tell you about Doug Shaw, 25 years of coaching, average 9 wins. There are only 6 coaches in South Carolina history who have coached 25 years or more and averaged 9 wins. John McKissick at Somerville, Willie Varner at Woodruff, Jewel McLaurin at Lakeview, a coach that was at Abbeville, his name escapes me, and then Doug Shaw. And I told you that Doug had a 86% winning career from 75 to 85. Mickey Wilson's career record, Scott Early's was 79 and 29. Mickey Wilson, who first became a head coach in 2009, Mickey's the beginning of the season was 157 and 46. And from 09 to 19, his record was 115 to 27. That's an 81% winning percentage. And again, as I remind you, you're given where your attendance area is. So that's a tremendous. And I'll just say this about football, and the reason why I believe that it is the ultimate team game. Number one, it's 11 players. And you've got to have the trust and the confidence of those other 10 players that they're going to execute their assignment on any given play, any given series of plays, so that you can have success, as a team. And before we end for a little Q&A, I'll bring this up. This is often what Doug would write on the board before we would leave the locker room. You guys may recognize some. So here, whoop, offense. All right, line, you got to hold your blocks. Ball security. That means no turnovers. Eliminate the penalties. Play through the whistle. That was always your offensive objectives during the night. Defense, execute your assignment. Wrap up and tackle. Limit the big plays and effort. You give effort on defense, you're going to have success. And then where I find, particularly in high school, where you're a really good football coach, is you focus on this thing called special teams, of which Coach Wilson is the special team coach at Myrtle Beach. And I didn't even mention to you the number of place kickers and punters and kickers that have tremendous success from Myrtle Beach High School, but most coaches overlook their special teams. But Doug Shaw didn't, Scott Early didn't, Coach Wilson didn't. I'm sure these two didn't. And that's what makes you, that separates you as a good football team over another. My favorite play when I played, we were predominantly an option-oriented team. This is 4 slot right, split left, option right pass. Now, running the option is you're going to ride the fullback into the line of scrimmage. I'm going to read the defensive tackle. If the defensive tackle dives and takes the running back, I pull it out. I'm coming down the line. I got a pitch guy right here. Buddy's playing defensive end. If he comes to tackle me, there's the pitch to the running back. Boom, he hits the gap up the field, right? That's option. We've been running that over and over and over. God, one more time. I'll be honest with you. I was sweating this morning. I felt like it was a Friday, and I was getting ready to play. And I'd wake up at 4 in the morning. I'm rolling over. All right, does everybody got their assignment? Who knows what play's going on? What's happening? That's what I felt like this morning about this afternoon. But then, everything is about getting an advantage, right? An advantage in your coaching staff. An advantage in the fact that you work harder during the spring and the summer in your weightlifting and your conditioning. An advantage in that the way you align, where you exactly line up, and then your play calling. So we're running option. We got pitch. Sometimes the quarterback gets to keep it and he gets 2 yards because he doesn't have any speed. But then we come back with this option right pass. So this is four slot right and 4 running backs in the slot. You got the X receiver, the wide receiver. We're going to ride the fullback. We're going to bring the defensive tackle. We're going to leave the end open. There's a read here. Now the quarterback's got 4 reads on this play. If the fullback's not there, go ahead and give it to if the tackle's not there, give it to the fullback. Let him get yardage. But this is looking for a pass. After you run the ball, you run the ball. So you got the slot receiver running a little flare pattern. The X receiver's running a slant. This guy's going to come in. This guy's thinking this option. He's come in. Oh, I'm going to tear that quarterback up. I'm going to take his head off. And so you ride the quarterback. You're reading the tight end. You're looking at the defensive end. Then you look to the strong safety and the cornerback. They come in. Boom. That receiver on that flare pass, that was Kevin Grant. He just goes right in and says, Kevin, all right, now it's coming to you. Just look up. Make sure you catch it. That's how we would come out of the huddle. I mean, I can remember it like it was yesterday, and I'll give it to you one time. Like, here the play comes in. All right, here we go, boys. It's 3rd and 5. We got to get a first down. All right, hey, boys, we have a successful option now. Look, let's run this play. Let's execute. No penalties. 4 slot right, split left. 4 slot right, split left. Option right pass. On 2. On 2. Ready? Break. We come up to the line of scrimmage. Okay. Blue 38. Blue 38. Set. Hut. Hut it. Hut. There's a ride. Gray comes down. Oh, he's hit. He fumbles. Ball turns it over. They run it back for a touchdown. That was my career. Anyway. We'll end it right there. I'm sorry. It's an hour and 23 minutes. I could go on for more. Yes, Ms. Springs.
When did the bell come into play?
Well, I need some help here. Coach Wilson and I believe it came into play in 68. That's the oldest that we have a game on the bell. So this is the Conway Bell, which is the trophy that goes to the winner of the Myrtle Beach Conway game. Of course, it's been at Myrtle Beach most regularly for a lot of years here recently. And you can imagine the excitement again of that 67 team never beating Conway, nor another team in Horry County beating Conway.
But it was 68, you think?
We think 68 was the first year that the Victory Bell came into play. Here's a megaphone that was brought in by Harold. Man.
My wife was the captain of the cheerleaders for 3 years. And that was her megaphone.
Oh, I had one that I gave.
Her name was Patty Hart. Now, she died about a year ago. But we had been married 63 years.
All right. Under Doug's tenure in the state championships, you would get a number of things. Today, they get these nice, big, beautiful rings. You'd get a jersey. You'd get to keep your sweats. They create these jackets. Now, this, I think, is from the 80 first state championship.
I don't remember what year.
This is probably the 80 or 81 state championship team. This was a jacket that Miss Shaw got made for her son, we know as Little Doug.
He's not little anymore.
He's not little anymore. Doug's still in the upper state. He's got 30 years as an educator and a coach at a number of different schools. But seeing my little grandson on Facebook page, Miss Shaw gave this to us to give to Kyler a year ago. So that's wanted to show you that. Hey, look, this has been a lot of fun for me. As most of you know, there's all things Myrtle Beach that I love. And it's certainly all things Myrtle Beach Seahawks that I love. And then just being with you today. And then the opportunity to interview the folks that I talk with. I want to read those names to you. Toby Ward, Clyde Capps, Bubba Cannon, Bobby Lewis, Buddy Stiers, Charlie Floyd, Cecilia Shaw, Leroy Rombo, Tom Langford, Monty Lully, of course Mike Hussey, Frank Smith. Frank was a football, basketball, and baseball player in 70, 71, 72, 73, and of course Mickey Wilson, and a number of others that I've talked to over the years. And it has been a an honor to learn things that I'd forgotten, to learn things I didn't know, and to add a little colorful narrative into the history of Myrtle Beach High School football, into the fabric. And I hope you've learned something today and you've enjoyed our time together. I wanted to give a hand to those folks that, Clyde and Harold and Charlie and Elton and Bubba, that were part of those early formative years in developing Myrtle Beach High School football. All right. If you need to leave, Mickey, football team, are you good?